The most frightening battlefield of the Vietnam War was 15 metres underground. And here, a small group of Australians might have altered the course of the war.
I opened the trapdoor. I said, well, let's get out of here.
Had they not been ordered to withdraw, they would have discovered the southern headquarters of the Viet Cong. Look, I've wanted to tell this story for a long time. I think because I'm fascinated by those turning points in history when the actions of a few men might have fundamentally altered history as we know it. It's a remarkable story. It happened 22 years ago. It happened in Vietnam, and it happened underground. For the Americans, it was time to get serious. Operation Crimp would seek out and destroy VC headquarters. For the duration of the war, the Americans carried out a costly search for the enemy's political and military command center. Intelligence reports now pinpointed the headquarters just to the north of Saigon, close to a notorious VC stronghold known as the Iron Triangle. The Americans were to attack the headquarters while the Australians blocked the VC retreat in a comparatively minor operation. Or so it was thought. The VC had their own elaborate intelligence network. They knew the assault was coming, and accordingly, they made ready.
Sau đó thì tới là pháo binh địch cấp tập. Thì lúc pháo binh địch cấp tập là lúc đó là máy bay địch đã phải tránh ra xa. Và chúng tôi biết rằng địch sắp đổ bộ.
While the Americans owned the day, the VC owned the night, and underground, it was permanently night. This footage, shown for the first time in Australia, gives some indication of how they fought their war. Since the 1940s and their fight against the French, the guerrillas had constructed an intricate network of tunnels in the south, and it was into these the Vietnamese simply vanished.
8 giờ sáng thì thấy trực thăng đến, và như tôi nói hôm nọ, tức là tôi đương nói chuyện với đồng chí tư lệnh quân khu bằng điện thoại. Tôi hỏi tình hình triển khai quân, thế thì lập tức tôi nghe một cái tiếng động thật lớn và cái đường điện thoại đứt, và sau đó tôi không biết cái điều gì xảy ra. Nhưng mà trực thăng thì đã bắt đầu bay đó, nghĩa là rất đông đấy, bay ngang qua sở chỉ huy của tôi và đáp xuống một cái cánh đồng cách chỗ sở chỉ huy chúng tôi khoảng chừng nửa cây số.
It was the biggest operation of the war so far. Helicopters, tanks, armoured personnel carriers, 8,000 Americans. and a contingent of Australians, which included a company of engineers led by a 25-year-old captain, MacGregor.
When we were landing, we were actually mortared, either mortared or shelled. The Air Force were called in, there were helicopter gunships were called in, and there was quite a deal going on the ground. Just the minute we landed, we knew there was something up.
The Australian engineers were called in to defuse a nest of mines and booby traps. Simultaneously, accurate sniper fire opened up ahead, and 4 Australians fell.
After the men were killed, the infantry put an operation in and actually secured the area around where the men were killed, and they still didn't know at that stage how they were killed. Then one of their soldiers found what appeared to be a slit or a hole, which was say 6 inches by 3 inches.
The fire had not come from the surrounding trees, but from a well-placed sniper hidden underground. When the Australians attacked the position, a tunnel opening was revealed, and in a sense, a new chapter in the war began. The Australians were up here, in the middle of a minefield, and now, revealed to them below, was an even more frightening battlefield. They looked down into the inky blackness, wondering what to do. And then an American dog handler arrived and showed his dog the hole. When the dog retreated in fright, so too did the Americans. So there was something of an impasse. The Australians were wondering what to do, and all of a sudden a solution to the problem appeared. But to take you to that next chapter in the story, we have to take you to another minefield, a very different minefield, in the far west of New South Wales. Les Colmer has lived in Broken Hill all his life. He has rarely moved far from the pithead, so the damp, dark narrowness of the underground holds no special fear for him. Les Colmer left the area briefly for a stint in Vietnam with a lifelong mate, Barry Harford. And as it turned out in Vietnam, the 2 Broken Hill boys were among the first to go underground.
Well, I didn't want to go. That was the first start, you know, but I was sort of in rotation. But pretty frightening, and actually it's bloody terrifying, really. And because every yard or any corner you come to is what's behind this, what's behind this, and it just scares the hell out of you.
They're on their battleground. They got the gear. They know exactly where you're going. You're going in there. It's like their backyard.
The first men down were those of the slightest physique. The sections of tunnel closest to the surface were deliberately narrow. Once inside, the Australians had to squeeze through what amounted to an elongated coffin. And the similarity doesn't end there. Apart from the spiders, snakes, bats and centipedes, there were booby traps and the ever-present prospect of a well-armed enemy just around the corner.
I said, there's nowhere to go. It's like a shooting gallery, you know. You know, the target's there and you can hit it.
The VC retreated deeper into the second tier of tunnels. They were surprised they'd been followed underground. This had not happened before. They were also anxious not to betray the importance of these tunnels, so they were under orders to attack the Australians only if there was no choice. Behind them, the Australians cautiously advanced. As they delved deeper into the tunnel system, more hidden entrances and new tunnels were discovered. All the time, without knowing it, they were moving closer to a critical turning point in the war. It was now day 2 of Operation Crimp. Upstairs, the casualties were increasing, with still little sign of the enemy. And downstairs, there was a call for reinforcements. Sapper Denny Ayoub, like the others, had to quickly conquer the fear of the Ku-Chi tunnels.
Well, it's not terror. I associate terror with loss of control. It's not loss of control, just a constant high. Heart thumping in the chest, an adrenaline run, no doubt. It's just before the shaking stage, if you know fear.
Ayoub and the others had penetrated the outer limits of a subterranean city. The Vietnamese had constructed entire schools and hospitals underground. Here, some Vietnamese would spend 6 months at a time without seeing daylight. So this was something more than the world's largest air raid shelter. The Australians would discover an arsenal of arms and ammunition and a library of valuable intelligence documents.
First of all, we took out over 1/2 ton of paper. Now, that's a lot of paper, you know. And there were documents, there were typewriters, there were radios with codes on the radios. There were, I know significantly, in the second or third day, we found what was supposed to be a hit list of the Viet Cong against the Allies in Saigon.
Cái đó là vì những cái bộ phận mà người ta bảo vệ cái chỗ đó là họ tính rằng là họ không bị bất ngờ là có cái lính Úc mà chun xuống học.
I approached the commander at the time and said that we were really onto something big, that the tunnel was going in both directions, and there was a lot more yet to recover. We knew that, of course, there were enemy down the tunnels, because when we'd found certain items down the tunnels or seen certain items, they were not there the next day.
Before long, the Australians ran into trouble.
It's when you panic. That's when the bloody thing gets you. That's when it gets you. You have no control of yourself when you panic.
Barry Harford became trapped. Starved of oxygen, he collapsed and had to be dragged unconscious to the surface. Another soldier, Bob Botel, was not so fortunate.
Bob actually got through one of those shafts, the vertical shafts, and then discovered that his tunnel system ran down at about a 40-degree angle. As it changed to go down that angle, there was a trapdoor in the floor. He cleared that and got down into there. When he got down into there, he lost consciousness through some tear gas and some smoke that we pumped down earlier on into the tunnels, and it took about half an hour to enlarge the vertical shaft so he could get him back out, and at that time he'd died.
Despite the setback, the Australians persisted. Harford returned underground with his mate Les Colmer, and together they branched out on their own, deeper into the tunnels. Ahead of them, the Vietnamese retreated, knowing full well that if the Australians came closer, they would have to stand and fight.
As far as I can recall, Barry found the wire with his knee. A little wire loop on top of the trapdoor.
Very carefully they traced the outline of this new trapdoor, checking for a tripwire. They were close to exhaustion. They also sensed that here was something important.
I opened the trapdoor. I said to Les, I said, "What do you think of this?" He said, "What is it?" I said, "It sounds like a clock ticking." I said, "Well, let's get out of here."
Had it, put it that way. Buggered, you know, just...
Oh, you're scared.
Oh, I'm scared, right? No worries there, but I mean, just maybe had it being scared, you know, and just we've had enough. We knew we were going.
Colmer and Harford were about here. In 6 days, the Australians explored and mapped about 1,000 metres of tunnel. So this is as far as they had searched when on day 6 orders came through for them to blow the tunnels and withdraw. That turning point we talked about would have to be about here. Beyond this trapdoor is a labyrinth of tunnels which dive and weave for hundreds of kilometres, at the time sheltering up to 5,000 enemy soldiers. And had the Australians entered the tunnel below, it would have led them directly to VC headquarters. Just beyond one perimeter of their search was the long sought-after VC political headquarters. And past the chamber Colmer and Harford discovered was the military headquarters. Here was the Pentagon of the VC offensive in the south, and the Australians had missed it by inches. Major General Fung was Chief of Staff for the Saigon military zone at the time. He showed us how close the Australians had come to his headquarters, and incidentally made it clear that had they come any closer, they would have been killed to a man.
Chỗ này đúng là nơi mà chúng tôi trú đóng cái sở chỉ huy để điều hành cái cuộc chiến tranh trên toàn bộ quân khu của chúng tôi. Đặc biệt cũng từ đây chúng tôi điều hành cái cuộc chiến đấu ở trong nội thành Sài Gòn gia đình.
As the political commissar for the Saigon region, Tran Bak Dang had an even higher price on his head. He had escaped the Australians by a matter of minutes.
Vì rằng là khi như tôi nói là sau đó họ cũng ở giữa đồng. Tôi thì đi theo địa đạo lên một khúc rồi lại lên trên mặt đất.
For the young Australian captain, the order to retreat by the Americans was frustrating. He knew he was onto something important. The news that he was absolutely right brought little comfort. So from a military perspective, do you think that there was a major opportunity missed when you were asked to withdraw?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And as for Barry Harford and Les Colmer, these days the air at Broken Hill tastes decidedly sweet.
Well, I reckon I've used up all my luck that I've ever had, you know, and if things go well in the future, well, it's not my luck, it's somebody else's. It's
The Australians were ordered to pull out. After all, the war was all about body counts, and at Cu Chi, there were no more bodies to count. Having knocked on the door of VC headquarters, the Australians retreated. So at the very least, we missed an opportunity to know the enemy at a crucial stage of the war. Instead, we were to learn the long and hard way. From those same tunnels, the subsequent Tet Offensive was planned, and for that matter, the future capture of Saigon. Had the Australians stayed and fought, who knows how the fortunes of war might have turned.